article discussed in this review was African Sounds in Gullah Geechee and on Middle Caicos by Thomas Klein. The article first mentions the work of Lorenzo Turner, a researcher known for the first in-depth study of the Gullah dialect. In his work Africanisms in the Gullah dialect, Turner researched the vowel and consonant structure of syllables in Gullah as well as the personal names, also known as the basket names, they used. While the Gullah have official names that they go by, basket names are the names only those close to them use. While studying the Gullah, Turner noticed similarities between Gullah and many Western African languages, noting heavy influences in Gullah from the Sierra Leone region. Klein then goes on to discuss the findings of Turner further. When looking at Gullah personal names, the majority of them follow the same four-syllable patterns. These four-syllable patterns are the ones most common in most West African languages. These syllable patterns include V, VN, CV, and CVN. V standing for vowel, C standing for consonant, and N standing for nasal consonant. There are many English words that follow these syllable patterns, including alibi, navy, and envy. Despite this translation, there are many names that do not translate to Gullah. Because the Gullah dialect does not allow the use of double consonants, names like Gertrude or Margaret are not allowed. Klein then goes on to mention the West African influences in Gullah personal names, and asserts that these African linguistic traits could also be found on Middle Caicos. Much like the Gullah, Middle Caicos has a deep tie to the slave trade. With British loyalists searching for a place to establish plantations with slave labor, Middle Caicos would soon find itself intertwined with Gullah and Creole language itself. To further illustrate the link between the Gullah in South Carolina and the inhabitants of Middle Caicos, one only need look at the building materials commonly used by the Gullah. Tabby was a common building material used historically by both the Gullah and in Middle Caicos. Klein's linguistic research then led him to a historic slave family. To research this link further, the author studies the family of Bilali, a slave owned by a plantation owner in Middle Caicos. When studying the names of the family, he discusses the African influences on the names Mamadek, Isata, and Sarada, as well as the Islamic African influences on the names Fatima, Medina, and Bilali. To depict the applications of Turner's research, the author mentions the word kariki. In the Middle Caicos, kariki is used to describe bait as ghost crabs. Meaning ghost in West African languages, kirikiri has one less syllable in its Middle Caicos and Gullah counterparts. This change in structure being in both the Middle Caicos as well as the Gullah dialect, the word showcases the connection between African languages, Middle Caicos, and the Gullah dialect itself. What Klein was trying to illustrate in this article was how Turner's research was an important insight into Gullah and African language, in that further studies into languages such as Gullah and the Creole-based language spoken Middle Caicos is essential to find further African influences. After reviewing the article, a couple questions come to mind. While Gullah has remained intact due to its relative isolation on the islands of South Carolina and the coast of Georgia, how has exposure to Southern English impacted the language? While Southern English has been known to pick up vocab from other dialects and languages, it would be interesting to see how Gullah has been impacted by the Southern English spoken on plantations at the time. Perhaps a more quantifiable question would be, how much does Gullah differ from the language spoken on Middle Caicos? Lastly, how much has Gullah changed from its African roots? As discussed about the kirikiri, it is worthwhile to study what differences have occurred in language. When discussing Gullah in relationship to this class, the research and conclusions found in this article are insightful towards the study of Southern English. Just looking at the cultural richness of Gullah, it is apparent that Southern English was greatly influenced by the many cultures and dialects it was surrounded by. The study of Gullah in this article also reflects the impact of the slave trade and the conquest of America and the effects it had on language. Lastly, Gullah research shows the historic significance of studying these regional dialects and the preservative natures they have.